This pandemic has highlighted so many of the problems in the United States. It's highlighted income inequality. It's highlighted our, for-profit, employer-based health insurance system and all the failures therein. It's federalism, how we can never get anything together to be distributed at a federal level because states just say they're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So many things. And income inequality probably the number one thing. I think they have a responsibility to give all their money, most of their money away, but they're not going to do it. I don't want them to be able to have this much money, not even close to it.
What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap, the first episode of 2021. Well, the first real episode, I should say. Of course, going to be breaking down some of this week's headlines, courtesy of our girl, B. Marie, who does our IG Live daily show, Rise and Vibe, where she breaks down some of the day's biggest stories. And here I am, each and every Saturday, kind of recapping some of those top headlines for you. And this week, I'm very excited about my guest. He is an incredible writer and journalist who focuses a lot on politics and has some really amazing perspectives. His name is Jesse Mechanic, so he'll be helping me break down the week that was this first week of 2021, man. So let's get into the BS because there's a lot of it this week. Now, I was really hoping that I didn't have to start the new year off, talking about politics this much, but here we are. 2021, in the first week of its existence has already managed to piss me off. So let's just, let's dive into it. So, if you've been living under a rock, you missed the fact that this week, a group of domestic terrorists stormed the Capitol building under the encouragement of the human cheese doodle that is Donald Trump and his merry band of losers. Surprise, surprise, I know. And this is all done as a means to disrupt the certification of the 2020 election. Now, while doing so, they put the lives of possibly some of the most important people to our country at risk. And I guess the only thing I could say about this, if we're trying to find a glass half full thing, it's definitely provided us with some of the most fire memes in recent memory.
We're animated, totally insane.
They pushed me out and maced me.
Those are the best.
Or this one. Now, when hearing the news break about the Capitol building being taken over by terrorists, because there's no other name for them, you immediately assume that this has to be the work of some highly skilled and well-organized group of people. That is, until you start seeing some of the pictures of these crazies. You gotta love this one guy right here who looks like he took the news of Burning Man being canceled this last year especially hard, and he refused to let a good outfit go to waste. Or this guy right here who chose to utilize his 30-minute lunch break from his job to go and commit treason. No, seriously, he's still wearing the ID badge around his neck from his job. Or you have people like this guy. Now, listen, I could sit here all day talking about the egregiousness of these riots, and trust me, they were. Egregious is an understatement. But to me, one of the glaring things from this event is the display of white privilege in this country. We've all seen Black Lives Matter protests and how those protesters are treated.
The NYPD officer caught on camera shoving a woman to the ground during a protest in Brooklyn, allegedly knocking her phone out of her hand and giving her a concussion and seizure. The incident, among two others involving police in Brooklyn, being investigated. The DA probing a cop for pulling down a man's face mask and then spraying the man in the face with pepper spray. That officer has been suspended without pay. And a third officer facing discipline for striking a protester by opening the door of an unmarked police vehicle as it drove by.
We can even throw it back to Puerto Rico when it comes to the Ponce Massacre, where in 1937, unarmed men, women, and children decided to have a legal parade in support of independence for the United States before 200 military policemen opened fire on them unprovoked at the orders of the U.S. elected governor at the time. And this led to 19 people dead, including a 7-year-old child, with over 200 others severely wounded. So it's painfully clear we live in a country and have always lived in a country where law enforcement seems to have no problem using force. That is, except, of course, when it's apparently just a bunch of angry white people. There, they don't think force is necessary. Shocker. I know. Instead of trying to stop things here, the cops, they happily moved barricades, to help these rioters, commit treason even easier.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again.
They stopped to take selfies rather than making arrests. Capitol with my man.
ACAF.
And somehow, some way, the National Guard was nowhere to be found for almost an hour after these riots started. You can't deny the fact that this proves the point that Black Lives Matter has been trying to make all along. And that point being that the police, and honestly our government as a whole, perceive Black and brown people to be far more dangerous than their white counterparts, even in the face of them committing crimes like we saw here, which I might want to add, the news broke yesterday. Sadly, a police officer died as a result of these riots. Remember when Blue Lives Matter, that was the cause they were getting behind? Yet somehow this same crowd bashed a police officer over the head with a fire extinguisher during these riots. Scary stuff, but incredibly telling. And still, these people walking away scot-free, sleeping in their own beds that night. And now listen, it's has to be, for anybody watching this, anybody who's sensical, you have a logical brain cell somewhere up there, has to be obvious now more than ever that the existence of white privilege is a very real thing. And it's incredibly important that we stop the denial of the existence of privilege so we can all come together and finally get to a place of healing in this country. Because the reality is this tit for tat, this blaming one another, regardless of if it's justified, it's not going to get us to the place that we want to be, where we can all live a life knowing we're being treated equally by those in power, by the government, and by our fellow citizens. So on today's show, in an effort to bring unity and put out there a display of unity, I thought it was important to have somebody on the show like my guest, Jesse Mechanic. So my guest is an ally, and he's somebody who uses his privilege to educate and inform, which is incredibly important. He is a freelance writer who is a regular contributor on platforms like the Huffington Post, In These Hard Times, and the Washington Journal. Jesse, my guy, how we feeling, man, after this crazy week that we just went through?
Hello, sir. I'm feeling a combination of a lot of things, but trying to be hopeful, you know, hopefully. Yeah. So a little bit of a lot.
That's all we can be, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Let's kind of dissect a little bit, because I started the show talking about the Capitol riots. Let me just hear, I guess, your initial thoughts, your knee-jerk reactions. I mean, it's been a couple of days. You've had some time to process it, but just kind of give me what's on your mind after what you saw.
Yeah, I just actually, I just put a video up on Twitter about it. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's not a surprise by any means that this was the culmination of this man's presidency, because to me, it's just like, it's just kind of an obvious conclusion, because this is the stuff that he's been pushing the entire time. Like,
Right.
he is a white nationalist, a white supremacist. He's been pushing this stuff since way before he ever ran for office. I mean, since he was sued for housing discrimination, since the Central Park Five crap, and then, you know, he got pulled into politics through saying Obama wasn't born in the United States. And he announced he was running by saying Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. Right. So he also has no relationship to the truth. He doesn't care about anything but himself. So, and he's kind of a brilliant propagandist. So all of those things tied together, and then the fact that he refuses to believe that he lost the election, and the fact that he uses this white supremacist language all the time of, they are killing you, they are taking away your identity, they are destroying the country. Then he riles up all of these people. And, you know, racism was always around, but he definitely pulled it back into the mainstream. And what we saw was white privilege meets propaganda meets, so, I mean, just the fact that these people are like filming themselves.
Right.
They broke into the Capitol building and they think it's like spring break or something.
Right.
It's just insane to me. It's so insane. And now I've seen, you know, like Matt Gaetz and some of these idiots try to say it was Antifa was in there. And then I'm looking today and it's all these like Proud Boys and people that are like, that wasn't Antifa, that was us.
Right.
That was us in there. It was them. That's a ridiculous thing. He told them to go do it.
Exactly. But that's the irony, is that they feel so proud of these actions and emboldened by their behavior that they want to claim credit for it. You know what I mean? That they feel like they're actually doing the right thing. And that's what's actually scary about it, is that they genuinely, in their heart of hearts, feel like they are fighting for a cause and fighting to save this country, which is incredibly scary, because there's no limit to how far they might go using that mindset.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think, to me, I'm glad you brought up white privilege, because to me, this was one of the more jarring examples we've ever seen of white privilege on film, on camera. And, you know, it's easy for people to kind of write somebody like myself off, a person of color, when I say the term white privilege. And one thing I respect about somebody like yourself, and that drew me to your content, was here is an intelligent guy, a white guy, talking about white privilege and not allowing his ego to get bruised by the fact that the word white and privilege are being put together. And that's kind of the interesting take on it. So, I mean, for me, how do you kind of separate that when you look at white privilege and have this conversation about it? And I know that you use your platform to educate and inform other people on its real existence and you know, the detriment that it is if you continue to deny it. And we've seen that happen, you know, so talk to me a little bit about that, your relationship with this.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, I mean, there's been so many examples, you know, the most obvious ones and the easiest ones to illustrate to people have to do with law enforcement, because you just see one interaction and then you see another, and there's so much different. I published an article a few months ago where I just really dove into the data a lot too, and how it just backs up that it is just so unequal in all levels. Like, in not only just being policed and how the police treat people, but how long the sentences are, how they're treated when they're in prison, how they're treated when they get out of prison and try to get a job, all of that stuff. So that's, you know, that's one of the easiest places to illustrate it. But still, there's a lot of people that see that and are, you know, have these preconceived implicit biases and just look at it and say, well, that person probably did something and this person does it, which just shows that their own racism mixed in there. But yeah, it's, you know, I'm hoping a lot of people saw this and just saw how ridiculous it looked compared to, you know, various Black Lives Matter rallies, and just the stark difference in the aggression. And in that article I wrote about a bunch of times when I was out with friends and we'd come across police and they would talk to them, you know, if my friend was Black or a person of color, differently than they talked to me. It was like when they switched back to talking like to me, it was like they were talking to a confidant or a friend and then an enemy. Like, you could feel the atmosphere shift. Obviously, I'm not saying every police officer is like that, but it is a culture that has that mixed in, and it's Yeah. And then, just the broader conversation of the fact that you don't see it all the time. Like, if you don't look for it, you're just like, well, I work hard and I do my job. So I don't see the white privilege.
Right. Well,
but what you don't realize is,
I don't mean to cut you. It's like they almost take it as this is an attack on my work ethic, on the work that I put in to achieve the life that I have. That's the fascinating part about it.
Absolutely. People take offense to it. I put out a video about it a while ago. I'm like, it is not a shot at you. It is just saying this is the way society is structured. Doesn't mean you didn't work hard. Doesn't mean you had an easy life. Of course, there's white people that have really tough lives. And there's people of color that have had easier lives in ways. But it's just saying that the way society is built right now, white people benefit more than everybody else. We are still on top and treated as such. And by and large, we're like the trusted, standard that it's just the way it is. And I feel like people have to recognize that, otherwise we're never going to change it. And white people have to recognize it to change it. And it doesn't mean making things like way worse for white people. It just means making, a more egalitarian society, a place that's better for everyone. People, they get so defensive about all of this. It's wild.
No, and I love that perspective of really just breaking down that it is not a personal attack.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's kind of continue moving forward of things that we've seen as a result of this, domestic terrorist act that you can't call it anything else but that. We're seeing the social media backlash now to Donald Trump, where he's getting banned on certain platforms and things of that nature. And this has been a big conversation, basically throughout his entire presidency, is the danger of misinformation being put out there on social media. We've seen how it seems like it's really radicalized a lot of the Republicans, out there and put a lot of people off the deep end into this conspiracy theorist world that they exist in. But what do you kind of see, or I guess, what's your opinion, I mean, on policing social media? Because it is supposed to be kind of this free platform for people to express themselves. And I do fear, while I think it's necessary, if there is too much government involvement, regulation, it then can lead itself to us having our voices silenced. So what's your take?
I know. Yeah, it's tough, because I agree with you, because dissent is good. And I mean, I'm someone who, someone who's worked as a journalist and all these things. Like I feel like there's a lot of people that follow me because of, a lot of the videos and the things I've been writing during the Trump presidency. But what they might not realize is I'm about to be just as critical of the Biden presidency and everything he does. It's not like I'm on one side and this is how I'm doing it. That's not how it goes. But yeah, it's tough. I say that to say like that, if a president is committing war crimes and you are and someone gets a leak and they want to put that out on Twitter or something, and then the government contacts Twitter or they're regulating Twitter heavily, that is concerning. So while I definitely think, especially Facebook with these, I mean, I don't think yesterday or Wednesday at the Capitol happens without like Facebook and YouTube. I just don't think people are radicalized and organized that much without it. So I definitely think Facebook needs to do a much better job internally to regulate it. And maybe there should be some sort of government regulation of it. But I'm with you. It's a little scary for that stuff, because I don't want voices to be silenced. I mean, there's other ways to get it out, but I don't know. It's tough. I definitely think they need to be better at it for sure. Because disinformation is, as we've seen, incredibly damaging. I mean, something like 40-something% of Republicans believe the election was stolen. I mean, it's insane. And like,
but on the flip side of it, like the exciting part is I feel like social media has made politics pop culture at the same time. So you have young people and people who would have never been this interested and maybe would have never even come out to vote are now interested in it and actually trying to be more informed and have conversations as a result of it becoming a part of their everyday life because of social media. You know what I mean? So this is what makes it
also
so
true.
difficult.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I mean, politics when I used to write about politics, not even that long ago. I mean, when Trump first announced he was running, maybe a year before that, 5-6 years ago, People just didn't care as much.
Right.
Not nearly as much. When I used to write about racial justice issues, some people cared. I'm not saying nobody, but they were more like activist people, and they were friends of mine who were people of color. Like white people just really didn't care. So that's another thing. Like social media has played a big role in that, getting people, involved in fighting for racial justice and stuff. So it's definitely, I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth whether it's like a good thing or a bad thing. It has a lot of bad, but it has a lot of good too. So I don't know. It's tough.
It is tough. And I mean, I think we just have to keep in mind, it's still a very new thing. You know what I mean? And, we're kind of learning as we go. I don't think anybody expected it to have this much influence this quickly.
No. Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, there's a good documentary called, oh my God, what is the name of it?
Is it a Netflix one?
Yeah.
Was
on social media? Social Dilemma. Yeah, that was good. Like, I think that's a big problem with it too. Just aside from the content, just the way it's designed currently to just have us. Yeah, that's not great. So I hope that will be kind of, because especially for younger kids, that element definitely worries me, just being attached to it and getting the dopamine rush when
Yeah, I mean, especially when it's by design, that's the scary part.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, all right. So let's switch gears just a little bit. I mean, from all the Trump nonsense, let's kind of talk. I mean, of something that he caused, essentially the terrible, lackluster, reaction and inaction, I should say, to the pandemic. And so many people's livelihoods being at risk right now, or just, they've had the rug pulled out from under them. But meanwhile, that's happening. We have the ultra rich becoming even richer as a result of this. So Elon Musk just surpassing Jeff Bezos as the richest person in the world. I mean, a lot of these guys have doubled their wealth. There's more billionaires now than there ever was as a result of this pandemic. I mean, what do you think that their responsibility is to back or not giving back, I guess, to the people who really have been suffering while they just keep getting richer and richer?
Yeah, I mean, I think this pandemic has highlighted so many of the problems in the United States. It's highlighted income inequality. It's highlighted our, for-profit, employer-based health insurance system and all the failures therein. It's federalism, how we can never get anything together to be distributed at a federal level because states just say they're not going to do it. So many things, and income inequality probably the number one thing. I think they have a responsibility to give all their money, most of their money away, but they're not going to do it. I don't want them to be able to have this much money, not even close to it. I want to go back to a top corporate tax bracket, what it was under Truman, when it was we had it, by the way, in this country, I think it was 93% for the ultra rich. That is, no one's even calling for that. Even Bernie and AOC and all the people and myself who really want to raise the tax plan, no one's even calling for it to go back to that.
Right.
But even if it was at 50 or 45 or 60, the amount of money, and I did a video about this. I don't think people realize how much money $1 billion is. It is so much money.
Yes.
It is just such an obscene amount of money. And then when you have 200 billion, it is like you could go 3,000 generations into the future and you'll be so enormously rich. It's no one needs that much. Not even close.
It becomes, it's like a dick measuring contest now. You know what I mean? They're all doing it now to get to the top of that list. So Forbes ranks them the richest guy. It almost feels like that now. You know what I mean? It almost feels like that's their goal. Because what else could it be? It's not, worried that they may lose everything they have. It's impossible, as you said, for generations for them to possibly lose that amount of wealth. That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah, it's that stuff drives me insane because because then people are pat them on the back. They're like, look, he donated $100 million.
Right.
That would be like me throwing 2 pennies, but it actually wouldn't, because money matters to me. Even if it's pennies, money is something I have to worry about, like most normal people.
Right.
They don't. They could literally light 50 billion on fire.
Right.
And they would never notice. That needs to be fixed. And honestly, it's really a shame that, the working class, which I categorize as basically everyone who's not ultra rich, it's a shame that we've let the elite divide us along these cultural lines.
Yes.
Because like really all the people that rioted at the Capitol would be helped by the things that they're fighting against.
Right.
They would be helped so much. Like the fact
Yes.
that these people are like, oh my God, socialism, you want to give people health care. And they think it's like the downfall of society when it would, it would make their lives infinitely better to implement a bunch of these policies, and it would make things just more equal on all levels of society instead of the way people don't realize that the way it's structured now is socialism for the ultra rich.
Yes.
They never pay taxes. They get all the money they want. They exploit the working class, and they just get richer and richer and richer.
Yep.
And then during a pandemic, they treat them even worse and get even richer.
Yeah, it's a sad, cold, hard fact. And the irony, you put like a beautiful bow on it there where you're talking about these people who are literally fighting against things that would help them. And they're literally getting instructions from an ultra rich person who's telling them how they should operate their lives, as if he has any damn idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck or have to work for anything your entire life. That's the irony of this whole thing.
Yeah, it'll always amaze me that he pulled this off, becoming some like working class hero when he was born filthy rich.
Yep.
And then has just like lost his money pretty much over and over and over again. He's not even a decent businessman. It's amazing. There's something about him. There's some talent there. I don't know what it is. I know I never see it. Even way before he ran for president, I was like, this guy is such a clown.
He's a master manipulator and marketer, I guess, the ultimate marketer at the expense of people's livelihoods, which is absolutely sad. I mean, I want to, a last thing before I let you out of here, Jesse, I want to end on like maybe like a lighter note if we can.
Yeah.
I know you're a hip hop fan. I've seen on your Instagram, man, you're sporting some great tees. Let's talk for a second. Cardi B was also in the news. Okay. So she was getting some Twitter backlash, because that's where all the backlash happens these days, about her song WAP, and she turned it off when her child walked into the room. She was doing like an Instagram live or whatever.
I didn't see this. Interesting. I don't know how I missed that.
That song's been wrapped in all kinds of controversy because it's a woman talking, in a sexual manner, when we've seen historically men have done that in music and in hip hop through generations. I mean, give me your perspective as just a fan of hip hop when you hear people giving her backlash for making a song like WAP.
I thought the backlash was stupid about that. I mean, listen, if those people doing the backlash, backlash all vulgar music, that's just their thing, vulgar, all like whatever music, I don't mean it's vulgar. You know what I mean? If that's their thing, then all right, if they're good across the board, but they clearly are not, because, as someone who's listened to hip hop, you've listened to hip hop, there's from Akinelli to 1,000 other people for decades and decades of male rappers. There's been songs way worse than WAP, way worse. So to me, it was like, go do your thing. I don't know why people are freaking out. And that's interesting that she turns it off, but why were people getting mad at her for that? Maybe she doesn't want her daughter to hear that. That's fine.
Right. I don't think Eminem was letting his daughter hear the Slim Shady LP where he talks about killing her mother. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
I hope not.
Right. Like logically, I would say, you should turn that off. I would think we'd be happy that like the person is able to separate, being a parent from also being an artist. You know what I mean? 100%.
That's, I mean, you should be able to create whatever kind of art you want. It can be, but that doesn't mean it's always good for your kids to see it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. No, I like Cardi. I mean, do your thing. She's cool.
And I absolutely agree with Jesse. I mean, it's been amazing to get your perspective, man. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. Please keep on doing it.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, man. And anybody that's discovering you for the first time, I mean, what can they check out from you? Where do you want to push them to? What do you have going on?
Sure. Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm just Jesse Mechanic, Jesse Mechanic, like the word, at J Mechanic on Twitter. I have a newsletter called Logical Radical. If you Google Logical Radical, it'll be there. And through the newsletter, we share a whole bunch of videos and everything anyway. So that's probably the best way. And it's free. It's not like a paid newsletter or anything. So that's the best. Love it, man. Well, listen, thanks again for hopping on here, man. And hopefully we can connect one day in real life when this whole storm is over. Yeah. That sounds great, man. Thanks so much. All right, brother. Take care. All right, you too. And big thank you once again to my guest this week, Jesse Mechanic.
It really is that simple. I love having conversations with people like that who honestly they just get it. And if more people just got it, we wouldn't have had this terrible, terrible disgrace and stain on our country's history that was this last week, man. Now, before I get out of here, of course, I want to end on a positive note. And I think it's probably more important this week than ever before, maybe when it comes to this show. So I want to do a positive quote. And this week's quote, it comes to us from Zoe Zaldana, and I'm going to kind of make this one my own just a little bit, because when she spoke these words, it was a response to immigration and all that we were hearing when it comes to the rhetoric from Donald Trump at the beginning of his run for office, and honestly throughout the course of his office. But some of the words in there I found to be very pertinent to what we're seeing right now, and just super powerful. So her quote loosely here is, you can't kill us, you can't send us back, so shut up and deal with it. Adjust your laws, because it's not going away. Or what I would say is, we are not going away. So for all of you Proud Boys out there, for all of those that wish that we can take things back to the way they used to be when you were on top and overt oppression was okay, I hate to break it to you, but those days are over. We're done with that. We have a voice. And if you have a heart, you should want this as well, because we're not fighting to be the superior race. We're not fighting to be better than anybody else. We're fighting to be treated exactly the same. That's all we're asking for. And if you have an issue with that, you have to do a lot of soul searching. You're claiming that you're fighting for, the savior of this country and all of this nonsense. The reality is you're fighting against the necessary change to truly make this country great for the first time for everyone. And listen, I get it. It's going to be slightly uncomfortable for some people, but deal with it. We've been uncomfortable for a very long time. This change is overdue. It's necessary, and feels like in 2021, we finally have the momentum to get to a place of healing. And that's what this is all about. Creating a world that is incredible for every single one of us, regardless of your cultural background, your skin tone, your gender, any of that stuff. It won't matter. It's supposed to be all of us together, equally existing in this country and being able to proudly declare ourselves American, because we know that we have a government, a system, and a community of people in place that actually gives a damn about us. So that's what we're working towards. And I'm sorry, if you have an issue with that, you are the unpatriotic one, and you're disgusting. There's no other words I could say for that. So with that said, I know that was kind of a half positive, half kind of soapbox moment, but I felt inspired. Now, thank you so much for tuning in once again to my show this week. The love and support is always greatly appreciated. Make sure you check out our girl, B. Marie, doing Rise and Grind via our IG Live every single weekday, giving you the daily top headlines. And then, of course, join me here each and every Saturday, breaking all that down for you. Until next time, stay safe. Do something positive for yourself. Do something to decompress after this crazy week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.